After yesterday's mostly polite questioning in the House, today General Petraeus and Ambassador Crocker testified in the Senate and ran into a bipartisan buzzsaw.
Are we going to continue to invest American blood and treasure at the same rate we are doing now? For what?
Over 1,000 weekly attacks. 1,000, and we're calling that success.
This war is the biggest foreign policy mistake ever.
68% of Iraqis believe that the surge has hampered conditions for political reconciliation. 70% believe that security has deteriorated. As a result of this, 93% of all Iraqi Sunnis think it's justifiable to kill Americans.
We need something a little more than, say, give us more time to come back again in the fall.
Like his earlier testimony, Petraeus urged patience and said the U.S. troop escalation is producing results.
The military objectives of the surge are in large measure being met.
But Democrats and even a few Republicans accuse the witnesses of being misleading.
We've got too many disconnects here, General. Way too many disconnects. Are we going to dismiss the 5 reports that I just noted?
Is it not true that the fundamental purpose of the surge, the primary purpose, political settlement, has not been met at this point?
Sir, clearly we do not have a national level political settlement.
The aggressive questioning seemed to wear down Ambassador Crocker. He went farther than he ever has in acknowledging deep problems with the U.S. occupation.
There is an enormous amount of dysfunctionality in Iraq. That is beyond question. The government, in many respects, is dysfunctional, and members of the government know it.
But Crocker and Petraeus insisted lawmakers should consider the progress with some of the local governmental councils. Democrats were aghast, noting that the Bush administration has been focused on Iraq's central leadership for almost the entire duration of the war.
We have been begging that leadership for the last 4.5 years to get their act together, begging them to do it, but no real indication that we're getting any closer to that. What makes you possibly believe that anything further like this is going to produce the results that everyone else has failed to produce over the previous 4.5 years?
The national reconciliation has not taken place, but there are steps just happening. There are actions being taken that give you hope that they can indeed reconcile with one another.
Petraeus argued that things like oil revenue sharing were happening even without legislation. Once again, today, there were protests. And with emotions running high, Senator Hagel himself lashed out when the witnesses urged Congress to ignore the 15 of 18 benchmarks for progress that Iraq has failed to meet.
Those 18 benchmarks didn't come from the Congress of the United States. Those benchmarks came from the Iraqi government and this administration. Somehow it's the Congress dictated these benchmarks. Well, we didn't.
All of this today came against the backdrop of the 6th anniversary of 9/11.
So the question we must answer is not whether we are winning or losing in Iraq, but whether Iraq is helping or hurting our efforts to defeat al-Qaeda. That is the lesson of 9/11.
Democrat Barack Obama said an Iraq hearing at this time was inappropriate.
I think that we should not have had this discussion on 9/11. Or 9/10 or 9/12, because I think it perpetuates this notion that somehow the original decision to go into Iraq was directly related to the attacks on 9/11.
This afternoon, Petraeus and Crocker testified before another Senate panel, the Senate Armed Services Committee, and it was more of the same.
What I hear from you is that the American commitment is going to be open-ended. It's going to be open-ended into the future. And I'm not sure the American people are willing to buy into that.
The most stunning moment, though, came after a question to Petraeus from Republican John Warner.
If we continue what you have laid before the Congress here as a strategy, do you feel that that is making America safer?
Sir, I believe that this is indeed the best course of action to achieve our objectives in Iraq.
Does that make America safer?
Sir, I don't know, actually. I have not sat down and sorted out in my own mind. What I have focused on and been riveted on is how to accomplish the mission of the multinational force Iraq.
For Petraeus to even struggle with that simple question about whether the Iraq War has made America safer won't exactly help the White House. Because as it stands, President Bush is expected to refer to Petraeus repeatedly later this week when the president speaks to the nation and argues that the high troop levels in Iraq should continue. I'm David Shuster for Hardball in Washington.